Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. I am live just briefly tonight to announce my new course on Heidegger, the question of being, which will be a tour de force through and along the thinking path of Martin Heidegger. The course is based on my book, which is this one here, Heidegger on Death and Being, an answer to the question of being, published by Springer earlier this year, in early 2021. The book itself is the result of a journey, a path that began, who knows when it really began, but it was sparked, at least the fascination with the question of death and being in Heidegger, with a footnote that I found in 2013 sitting in a library in Munich, in the Staatsbibliothek on Leopoldstraße, reading What is Metaphysics, Was ist Metaphysik, in a footnote from 1949, 20 years after the first publication of the essay or talk. Heidegger added the footnote saying that death, Tod, das Gebirge des Seins. Death, the mountain range of being, or death, the gathering of concealment of being. And I was thunderstruck by this rather uncanny, weird sentence. And so I had to find out, what does it mean that death is the concentration, the gathering of sheltering and concealment of being? And where it took me was, where I think now is to see that there is a unity in the thinking of being, in the thinking path, and there is a unity to his entire project, which begins before Being in Time with the prolegomena to the history of the concept of time, and continues all the way throughout. And I understand Heidegger's thinking path as going along four major questions or themes. The first one is the Analytic of Dasein. This is also how the course will begin. And then it moves into the Ereignis, into the utter concealment and withdrawal of the realm, which Heidegger calls Ereignis. And arising from out of Ereignis, from this thought of withdrawal, Heidegger then is able to begin to see what has come to be called the so-called essence of technology as Gestell and poetic language, a language that can show and reveal what is there, but hidden usually, in a way that cannot be mechanized and formalized. So the course will begin with an introduction on transhumanism, but also an introduction on being and time itself, in the methodology of being in time and the project of being in time. Then continue with the Ereignis in the contributions to philosophy. The fourth lecture is on technology, and then the final lecture on poetic language. And it's always related to the question of death, because it is in death that you can find and articulate an answer to the question of being. If you want the syllabus for the course, just follow the link down below in the description of this video, and you can just type in your email address and I'll send you the syllabus. And seminars will begin very likely, I haven't completely decided yet on, but it probably will begin in early July. So 4th of July probably, maybe a week later or so, we'll find out. So Sundays. But how does being in time begin? How does being in time begin? There's a quote here. Look. Can you see it? Who knows, maybe. It's a quote here from Plato's Sophists. And I will now poorly translate from the German. He says delongar in Greek. So it is apparent, it's obvious, that you have long since been accustomed with and have thought that you knew and are confident that you knew what is meant with the word being. However, and by the way, the German here is not being as das Sein, sondern seiend, seiend, with that which is, would be a better translation actually than being. However, we have now become perplexed. And Heidegger then says, have we today, he responds to Plato on the first page, have we today a response to the question for that which we mean with the word to be, seiend, with that which is. And so it counts to ask again after the sense of being once more. And time shall be the horizon. On the first proper page, we could say, of the first paragraph, on the necessity of an explicit repetition of the question of being, Heidegger says in the second sentence that even though there is an increased interest again in metaphysics at the time where he writes it after the crisis of philosophy, there is a newly arising or unfolding gigantomachia perithesousias, which, however, is not really an issue. So the gigantic battle for being is not the considered question at the time when Heidegger starts to write Being in Time. There is always, we can almost draw from this here, there's always a gigantic battle then, it seems, about the meaning of being. And it has to be drawn out of being in every single epoch. What does it mean to be? By the way, in the prolegomena to the history of the concept of time, which Heidegger is a lecture course which Heidegger gives in Marburg 2 years before the publication of Being in Time, Heidegger explicitly responds to Descartes. And he says that the formula cogito ergo sum is pointless because it doesn't introduce the finitude into existence. And so here he responds, warning, however, that such a formula itself could be completely meaningless. But he says, if any such formula would make any sense, then it would be sum moribundus. I am insofar as I am oriented towards my death. So from the beginning, and at the heart of this book is death, death, death. It's not so. If anyone tells you that Being in Time is about using a tool and how to use a hammer, run for your life. Just run, because that's a bit off, a bit too short-sighted, perhaps. As Heidegger says in the Fundamental Concepts of Metaphysics, he says, "It never occurred to me to describe Dasein in its life world, how it takes the tram and uses knife and fork to eat." So Being in Time centers around the energy source that is death, which is at once the ownmost possibility of Dasein, but also its impossibility of existence. So there's an abeyance, a withdrawal introduced already in Being in Time. If you bring this together with the thought of aletheia, the thought of truth as unconcealment, a concealment that is unconcealed, which Heidegger not yet radicalizes here, but will come to radicalize over the decades, you can begin to see why it is indeed in death, and only there, that an articulation of the question of being can arise. And so we will go through what it is that Heidegger means by phenomenology, for example. Why is it that phenomenology is, for Heidegger, the ontological methodology par excellence. And by the way, of course, methodos means path. And what it is, how it is also that with death, Heidegger arrives at the thought of being itself as that which is possible, als das Mögliche, moving over and beyond a metaphysics of availability of actuality. And it's so one of another focus, of course, will be time and ecstatic temporality, which is finite, according to Heidegger, and it'll push us then into the abyss of the Ereignis and down into the utter concealment and withdrawal of the realm which Heidegger calls Ereignis, to which mortals have always already responded, to which metaphysics itself is a response. And it is from this Blickbahn, from this stance that Heidegger here finds, that he can begin to see the so-called history of being, Pohl translation for Seinsgeschichte, I now translate it as the tidal waves of being, or the tidings of being, perhaps even the whispers of being. And it is only from there that Gestell as the realm of technics comes into focus. It's another poor translation to speak of Gestell as the essence of technology, as if Heidegger were after some essences and some pseudo-metaphysical discussion about the essence of technological tools, etc. No, he's about the realm that spun open from out of the bubbles that burst out of Ereignis, and what kind of this exclusivity which this realm pretends to have, and wants us to believe that it is exclusive. But the fact that Heidegger can see the Gestell means that it is already coming to pass. For, as Hölderlin says, where there is danger, there the salvation grace grows also. So we can, what I will try and show, and I've shown, I think, or have at least attempted to show in the book, is that technology itself, why is technology, transhumanism, etc., why are they enemies of death? Why this almost ridiculous attempt to overcome death? Well, because death is that which always withdraws, is never present, cannot be made available, and cannot be made manageable. Death is a realm that we traverse, but that completely eludes any lighting up or any availability. And so Gestell comes to be the enemy of Gebirg, that which forces a positioning of everything that is, insofar that it is and is made available as a standing reserve. And now, of course, in the digital time, there's not even, the digital age is not even necessary really to have something as a standing reserve. It can just be briefly generated and then be dropped again. But Gebirg is the opposite. Death is the gathering of sheltering. And a sheltering, why? Because precisely here there is no availability. It's in the non-available, that which cannot be controlled, the uncontrollable, that the beauty of the world, where we allow release for something to occur and to happen, that at once the finitude of every moment begins to show, and therefore its inherent beauty and uniqueness. But also, of course, there is a non-forcedness about this, which is what Gestell despises, and its functionaries despise. This is why perhaps technology is the enemy of death and wants to eradicate death. And the final lecture will be on poetic language and poetic thought, a lithological thought, a way of thinking that cannot be mechanized, that will forever elude any attempt and any sort of, that cannot be attacked at all whatsoever by the cybernetic operations or by the neurosciences or anything like that at all. It's because it's meaningless when they hear that there could be a clearing for that which is self-concealing itself in something other. So we will traverse through and along the thinking path, trying to articulate our answer to the question of being and to withstand the gigantomachia perithesousias, the gigantic battle for being. And if you would like to receive the syllabus, I invite you again to follow the link in the description. And if you sign up there, I will send it to you within the next couple of days. Seminars begin at the end. If you have any questions, then you can just respond to my email about the course. And yeah, so we will, this will be a course for anyone interested in Heidegger, in continental philosophy, phenomenology, etc. Usually it's, one of the general questions that I sometimes get, of course, is, do you have to know anything about Heidegger? My experience now, I'm going to teach this course for the second time. I'm extending it a bit, so there will be, the lectures will be re-recorded, and there will be some more lectures actually. There were people in class last year who knew Heidegger and others who didn't. And I think it made sense for everyone. However, I have to say the course, like every other course that I teach, is very difficult. It's probably on a postgraduate level. So this is not some silly introduction. You have to put work in, but it will be worth it, I think. And so you don't have to know any of Heidegger, but you have to come with a burning heart for the gigantic battle of being. And so yeah, there will be more videos on the book and others on Heidegger, so you know what to expect in the course. So this might be maybe quite helpful for you if you're not quite sure what to expect from me. Just listen to those so you know. There's an entire playlist on Heidegger on there on my channel, so you can listen to that, so you get a sense for where I'm coming from. And I'm certainly not in the camp of those who think that being in time is about using a hammer. That would be a really sad waste of time, wouldn't it? To write such a book about using a hammer. So yeah, thank you very much. Any questions, comment down below, or if not, then if you don't have any questions for now, just follow the link, get the syllabus, and then you can still ask me a question there. Thank you. Goodbye.